She has a wife, Zulaykha. And the wife falls in love with Yusuf. Like, is so impressed by his sense of beauty, she tries to seduce him. And he said, well, it's a lesson for all of us. So Yusuf is in a room. And Allah says she enters the room. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. And she locks all the doors, but not just locks. غَلَّقَ. Like فَعَلَ. Almost like she double locked the doors. Almost like she padlocked the doors. She locked everything so Yusuf has no sense of escape. You know, sometimes the worst of sins emerge when the possibility of sin is made easy. And Ibn al-Jawzi and many ulama, they speak about that. When the sin becomes easy to do, Shaitan will capitalize a lot on that moment. Because he knows that that sin is easy for you. Zulaykha is locking all the doors because she thinks no one can come in. Not my husband, no one else. Yusuf is trapped. وَقَالَتْ, and she says, هَيْتَ لَكَ. Like, come here. Like, she's seducing him. That's Yusuf's biggest test, by the way. We're tested in different ways. In some cases, we're tested because hardships. That's the test. But the other test is patience in obeying Allah. Like, for example, if you prayed Fajr in the morning, a test is, would you pray Dhuhr? Would you make wudu when the water is cold in the winter? That's all a test of obeying Allah. But the hardest test is being away from sin. Staying away from sin. Pushing back against sin is a test of the believer. And so Zulaykha is trying to seduce him. And what does he say? قال معاذ الله إنه ربي أحسن مثواي. He says three remarkable things, Yusuf alayhi salam. He says, number one, معاذ الله. May Allah forbid what you're telling me to do. Every transgression, even if it's against people, is fundamentally against Allah. Every time we do wrong to each other, we're doing wrong against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every sin is a sin against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if, like in this situation, he's saying, even what you're inviting me to, ma'ad Allah, I seek refuge with Allah. Meaning Allah is the one that is committed a sin against, even in this situation. It's not even about your secondary. If I violate against you and your husband is betrayed, that's secondary. Innahu Rabbi, meaning Innahu Sayyidi. Your husband is my master, like I'm employed by him. How could I do such a thing? Ahsan mathwai, he's been good to me. Why would I betray him if he's been so good to me? And those who are zalimeen have no success end of the day. So Yusuf alayhi salam pushes back against the sin. The sin is coming upon him. Zulaykha's prepared everything, locked all the doors, made it all possible for him. What does he do? The realization that if I do this, I'm appending so much. One Pakistani scholar said, he said in Urdu, कभी थोड़ा मज़ा के लिए गुनाह ना करना, कभी थोड़ा मज़ा के लिए गुनाह ना करना, क्योंकि मज़ा ख़त्म हो जाएगी और गुनाह बाकी रह जाएगी. और कभी थोड़ी मशक्क़त के लिए नेक अमाल ना छोड़ना, क्योंकि मशक्क़त ख़त्म हो जाएगी, नेक अमाल बाकी रह जाएंगे. Isn't that true? It's true. He said, कभी थोड़े मज़े के लिए गुनाह ना करना. Never for a small enjoyment commit a sin, because the enjoyment will finish, the sin will remain. Never for small enjoyment commit the sin because the enjoyment will finish, but the consequence of the sin are still there. And never for a small difficulty leave a good deed, because difficulty will pass, the good deed and its consequences will remain. And so Yusuf alayhi salam puts this into action, but he's tested in this and he passes the test. But because of this, Zulaykha, moved by that passion, conspires against him, lies to her own husband. The husband is stuck because it's in this situation, I got to show face to people, and Yusuf is then imprisoned. And imprisoned, and then imprisoned again, and spends a long time in prison. Like not for 1 year, but many years in prison. And he says, Rabbi, as-sijn ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilayhi. My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than to what they invite me to, what they call me to. Sometimes, in life, you might, for example, make this is all hijrah, it's all like separation from things. Even, for example, you being in the masjid means you're here, you're not there. Being in the masjid means you're not in the bar. Being in the house of Allah, you're not in the club. Being in the house of Allah, you're not out there with the gangs and with the knives, and we're not with that. You've migrated away from that to find a new place of goodness. So all of us have to make that sense of migration in life, which means moving away from something to find something else. Sometimes we become trapped in something because that's just not where we're supposed to be. But moving away from that to find a better ending is the best recourse for the believer. And Yusuf alayhi salam, even though he's innocent, he's done nothing wrong, Zulaykha, women have conspired against him, but still he places his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will give him deliverance. But it's a test of Allah. What happens in the prison? This is a key point, point number 3. So the first one therefore is Allah is Alim and Hakim. Allah is all-knowing, Allah is all-wise. Number 2, patience. Whatever you're facing in life, be patient with that. And Allah will deliver you soon enough. And number 3 is this, dawah. Dawah. I'll tell you something. And I mentioned Gaza, because everything really for us to think about dua for is in connection to what's happening in Palestine and all lands of oppression. But there is a very long story, hadith, a true story the Prophet mentioned about a boy and a king. You've all heard that before. This emanates from our knowledge of Surah Al-Buruj in the Quran. Surah Al-Buruj is like one of those key surahs. Allah takes us from the macro of the big to the micro of the smaller. But the small is still humongous for us. Like what's Sama'i Dhatil Buruj? By the heavens and constellation, meaning big things outside of you, planets and stars and all these bodies in the universe. This amazing constellation and all these things that we have the knowledge of, maybe billions, if not trillions of things. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَعُودِ. And by the appointed day, appointed time, Qiyamah, we're going to stand for Allah. وَشَاهِدُ وَمَشْهُودِ. And by the witness of what is witnessed, قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. Damned are the people of the pit. So from all of that, Allah brings us all down to this. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا. Sun, moon, night, day. But it goes on, كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا. Case study, a real case study of living people. Thamud were condemned. So all these things happen, and then Allah is saying, but that's the focus. Whatever is outside of you should remind you what's inside of you. Isn't that happening now? When that happens, Allah is doing us a favor. Even in this consequence, when you have a massacre, genocide of the Muslims of Gaza, and some people are embracing Islam. That means they found a way through this Allah's made an opening for them to accept Islam. Something external to them has awakened something internal to them. Powerful. But in this story of the boy and the king, right at the end of everything, when they made the fire, they lit the fire, they burned these believers alive, the people, when they say, Amanna bi Rabbil Ghulam, we believe in the Lord of the boy, they believed. But one of the advisors comes and he says, أَرَأَيْتَ مَا كُنْتَ تَحْذَرْ فَوَاللَّهِ قَدْ نَزَلَ بِكَ. Do you see the thing you were scared of in the beginning has now come to you? The thing you were worried about happening is now happening to you. So always place your trust in Allah, because when Allah does things for you, you'll be shocked. How did that thing happen? It happened because you took the right way in life. So always remember that. Allah is Alimun Hakim. Patience. And number 3, da'wah. You see, people get da'wah sometimes in ways that we would never expect. Da'wah. The call to Islam. Yusuf's in prison. These 2 people come to Yusuf and they say to Yusuf, we hear about you, inna naraka lamin al-muhsinin. We see you of the muhsinin. Now here's a question for all of you. How do they know? How do they know Yusuf is of the good people? How do they know that? Because the Quran doesn't tell us, like, what have they seen in Yusuf? We don't know what they've seen. Maybe they've seen something of Yusuf, like patience and good character and perseverance and piety. And now they say, you know what, let's go to him because he can interpret dreams and he's of the muhsinin. Never ever underestimate, undervalue your presence, your words. Never think I've given da'wah is having no effect. Who do you know? How do you know? Allah can change a person's heart. No, you, Allah will do that. Maybe someone 5, 10 years after you have said something remembers your words, remembers you, thinks about you, prays for you, and remembers what impact you had on them. So never ever underestimate the power of your words and the power of your character. They saw Yusuf's character. He's of the muhsinin. Your honesty, your truthfulness, your integrity, your courage, your patience, all of these things affect the world around you. Don't think, I mean, of course it's you, you're doing it, but your kids are seeing you. Your parents are witnessing you. Your neighbors are seeing your behavior. All of these things are having an effect. How do the Muslims of South India, you had in Mali, South India, trading ports where Muslims would gather for trade, and because they were truthful, they wouldn't cheat, they wouldn't steal, they wouldn't lie, they wouldn't deceive, they wouldn't steal money, they wouldn't be untruthful, they wouldn't nick stuff, they wouldn't steal stuff. They were truthful. This had an effect. People would say, we want to be part of you if you're so truthful. They would become Muslim. Islam grew because of that truthfulness. So don't forget that. They're seeing Yusuf and they say, we see you of the good people. How do they know? Because he must have done something good. But Yusuf tells them, this is your dream, fine, but doesn't tell them the full thing. Waits. What does he tell them first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayat. Multiple ayat. He's saying, you know what, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Me, Yusuf, I'm from the tradition of great people. Yaqub and Ishaq and Ibrahim. Great people before me said the same thing. He's giving them da'wah, using the occasion to tell about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The moment. Telling them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says to them, by the way, what's going to happen is that this will happen to you, this will happen to you. So he uses the moment to speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even though Yusuf has been away for so long, point number 4 is this, that never lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yaqub now is older. He's older. Yusuf's older. He spent all of his life in prison working for the minister. But now Yusuf is out of prison. Zulaykh was shown to be a liar. There was a witness. She was a liar. Yusuf's in charge of the food stuff. The brothers are stuck because there's a food shortage. They have to rely on Yusuf. Now they're going to go to Yusuf and not knowing it's Yusuf, and they're going to say, please help us. But Yusuf keeps a smaller one, Benjamin, with him. Tricks them. But look at what the father says. The father says, يَا بَنِيَّ اذْهَبُوا فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِنْ يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ وَلَا تَيَأْسُوا مِنْ رُوحِ اللَّهِ. The father, the old man Yaqub alayhi salam, says to his boys, go and find Yusuf. Inquire about Yusuf. And do not lose hope in the life-inspiring mercy of Allah. Now that's something you would expect the boys to tell the father. Father, it's been many years, but don't lose hope. Instead, the father tells the boys, you don't lose hope. The boys must have had in themselves like this feeling of, you know what, it's a sin, we've done bad. Definitely separated him from the father, him from us, all of this stuff. But still he says, don't lose hope. None of us are perfect. All of us are sinners. Hadith says, كل ابن آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. All of the sons of Adam make mistakes and sins, but the best are those who make tawbah to Allah. When you lose hope in Allah, shaitan takes advantage of that. Because it makes you feel despondent, worthless. But never lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll say this now, so you remember for tomorrow about Christmas. Do you know why it's such a terrible thing? And for you to know why. Because, look, in the Quran, when Allah mentions, like in Surah Al-Kahf, one of the first ayat, Allah says, this Quran is what? Is to make indar. Is to warn those who say Allah has taken a son. Quran is to warn those who say Allah has taken a son. What's the big deal? Where's the big deal? In the Quran, Allah says, they say Allah has taken a son. لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدَّةً. Like you've done, Allah says, a monstrous thing. It's something so monstrous that Allah says it's like the heavens and the earth and the mountains are all crumble and split and tear asunder. Imagine Allah is saying it's like the whole universe, heavens and earth and mountains are all in ruin. And جَعُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدًا. And that they say Allah has taken a son. 2 verses before that, Allah says, look at this, remember this. Allah says that the ones who will be successful are the ones who will have with Ar-Rahman ahada. They will have with Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate, like an oath. Then Allah says, and they say Ar-Rahman has taken a son. That's twice Ar-Rahman taken a son. Then Allah says it's a monstrous thing. Then Allah says, next ayah, heavens, earth, mountains ruined, and then they say Ar-Rahman has taken a son. It's a third time, isn't it? Allah mentions Ar-Rahman. Next verse, Allah says, وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ. Not befitting for Ar-Rahman, take a son. That's the 4th time. Next verse, everything comes to Ar-Rahman as Abda. Everything comes to Ar-Rahman as a servant. 5th time. So in 5 odd verses, Allah mentions His beautiful name Ar-Rahman 5 times. Why? Why the emphasis on Allah being the most merciful one? Because Christians believe falsely that the one that Maryam gives birth to, Isa alayhi salam, would be the source of mercy for the whole world. And Allah is saying Allah was always, is always, will always be Ar-Rahman. When Isa alayhi salam is born, before he's born, given the good news of the birth by Jibreel alayhi salam, and Allah says that the angel comes basharan sawi, as a handsome boy. What does she say? قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت. I seek refuge with Rahman from you. إن كنت تقيا, if you have any fear of Allah in you. Meaning Maryam already knew who was Rahman in her life, Allah. The reason why therefore it's such a monstrous thing in some ways is because all that human devotion towards the source of all mercy, Allah, is given out to somebody else other than Allah. And he himself is undeserving of that, alayhi salam. So Yaqub says to the boys, don't lose hope in the mercy of Allah. If we should make tawbah every single day, all the time. Every time you pray salah, what are you saying? You're saying Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Glory be to Allah the Most High. You're saying Sami Allah liman hamida. Allah hears one that praises Him. Make tawbah, ask Allah, make istighfar, turn away from sin. Through three conditions: leave the sin, promise to Allah you won't go back to the sin, and feel a sense of remorse about the sin, and give back someone's rights if you've wronged somebody. Don't lose hope in the mercy of Allah. And off they go. And when they go, they see Yusuf. And Yusuf is now an older person. He's grown up. And so they need food. They are asking for food. Yusuf reminds them. He says, you know, do you guys remember like when you did wrong to Yusuf? And they realize, how would he know that? Unless he's Yusuf. So they say, قالوا أئنك لأنت يوسف. Are you is it truly you? Are you Yusuf? قال أنا يوسف وهذا أخي. I'm Yusuf. And this is my brother, full brother, Benjamin. قد من الله علينا. Allah was favorable to us. Now here's a key point. إنه من يتقي ويصبر. Whoever has taqwa and sabr, he says, Allah will not waste reward of good. And this is a key point for all of us. I'm going to end soon. Look at this point. You know, sometimes in life we have broken homes, broken families. Our neighbors don't talk to us. Our brothers and sisters don't talk to us. Our friends, family are not talking to us. Why? Sometimes, you know why? Because of ego. Because I'm too proud to say sorry, and he's too proud to say sorry. Yusuf, who's been abandoned for so long, a victim of injustice, what does he say? He says, look, whoever has taqwa and sabr, he doesn't say, I had taqwa and sabr all these years, and because of that, I'm successful. He didn't say that. He says, he keeps it neutral. Sometimes when you're reconciling, you keep things neutral. If you have a problem with your wife, you don't go and blame your wife. You don't go and say to your wife, because you did X, Y, and Z. You keep things neutral. If you do that, then you prevent egos from kicking in. Shaitan has less power on you. Neutral, so therefore we can reconcile because it seems fine. Because if he said to them, you see, all these years I had taqwa and sabr, they will feel like, they'd go off. They'd go off. Doesn't do that. He says, whoever has taqwa and sabr, meaning I could have it today, you could have it tomorrow, we could have it tomorrow. I might have some, you might have some, meaning whoever has it, taqwa, fear of Allah, and patience, Allah will not waste your reward. Allah will not waste your reward of good. So therefore, and then they reconcile. And he says to his father, Father, and Allah says, you know, he raises his father and mother. رَفَعَ أَبَوَيَّ الْعَرْشِ. You know, he venerates them, he raises them. You have parents, honor them. Allah will honor you if you honor your parents. Wallahi al-azim, wallahi al-azim. Allah will honor you if you honor your parents. Allah will give you everything. Allah will honor you. Allah will love you if you honor your parents. Like kiss your mother's feet. Kiss your mother's feet. hold your father, embrace your father, hug your father. These things are like what the Prophet of Allah told us to do. And Yusuf alayhi salam, Allah says he raises his parents, making like a prostration of veneration, which we don't do today, we're not allowed, but he does that in his time to show respect to them. He says, Father, you see, this is the dream that I told you of in the beginning. This is what it must mean. Allah took you out from the wilderness, and min ba'di an nazgha shaitan bayni wa bayn ikhwati. And after shaitan sowed corruption between me and my brothers. What does he say? Shaitan made the problem between me and my brothers. Shaitan did it. See, it has an effect. When you have a problem with somebody and you say, you know what, you caused this for them. Maybe he has done all that stuff. But if you say Shaitan is just making fasad between us, then we're both at the same point. Shaitan is aduwan, fattakhidhu aduwa. Shaitan is an enemy. Take him as an enemy. An enemy for all of us. Therefore, we are separate from that. But we can now have a strategy or plan of action. So Yusuf alayhi salam says to his family, we will reconcile. Now they said to Yusuf, we did wrong. What does he say to them? La tathrib alaykum al-yawm. No blame on you today. Allah will forgive you. And Allah is Arhamar Rahim. Allah is the most merciful, most merciful. When the Prophet came back into Mecca, what does he say to the Meccan people? The Quraysh, who made his life so difficult when he was living in Mecca. The same words of Yusuf. La tathrib alaykum al-yawm. No blame on you today. May Allah forgive you. Meaning he's showing them the power of this Quranic paradigm through Surah Yusuf. We appreciate that because we can see Yusuf, we can see the Prophet ﷺ in action against his people. No blame on you today. Allah will forgive you. Allah is forgiving and merciful. Yaqub says, I will ask Allah for, some ulama they say, he says, so far stuck for me. I will ask because they say that perhaps Yaqub will seek Allah's forgiveness for his sons at the best time of the day, like in Tahajjud time. Qiyamul Layl. I will ask Allah for forgiveness for you. As opposed to saying, may Allah forgive you. I will ask Allah for me, the future tense. May I'll choose the right time, the best time to ask Allah for forgive you. And Yusuf makes a prayer to Allah, my Lord. Anta waliyi fi dunya al-akhirah. Oh my Lord, you are my supporter in dunya and akhirah. Tawaffani musliman wal-hiqni salihin. My Lord, let me die as a Muslim and put me with the righteous people. That's Yusuf's dua. And Allah ends Surah Yusuf by telling us that you will find لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. You will find in the stories of people of the past profound lessons for people of depth and understanding. It's not a tale invented, but confirmation of what came before. Guidance for us. May Allah forgive us and accept from us. And may Allah make Surah Yusuf always a living surah in our hearts and our minds. May we take guidance from it always. May we live with this amazing sunnah of the Prophet of Allah in how we should live our lives. May Allah give aid and success and victory to the people of Gaza, Palestine, of Kashmir, of Hind, of Seen, of all places. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullahu khairan.